So, Roger, you then went into national service. What was that like?
You're pretty frightened. You're just 18. You've been 18 a couple of months, and you get the call. First thing that happens to you is the medical. And so the guy, you're standing there, and you've got nothing on, and they check you for piles, and then they check your groin, and then they look round you in your mouth and in your ears and so forth. Find out whether you're flat-footed or anything, because if you're flat-footed, you don't have to go. Anyway, then you have an interview. And my brother told me, he said, you could possibly get in the RAF if you tell them you want to be a pilot. So this bloke's interviewing me, and he's very interested in me because my father's been an officer in the First World War, and they're looking out for what they call potential officer material, POM. And so I say, I want to be a pilot. Oh, yeah. So that's it. I'm in the RAF. A bit later, you suddenly get this letter, and it tells you where to report to and what date. You get about a fortnight's notice. And so I had to go on the train. They send you a warrant for your rail travel, and I take the train over to Manchester, Warrington, actually. It's a camp called RAF Padgate. The particular day that we went, I always remember it because it was the day that Derek Dooley, the Sheffield Wednesday centre forward, had an accident on the Saturday before, and he had to have his leg amputated. And I was being a Sheffield Wednesday supporter, it made a big impression on me. You find that you're with 24 kids, and that's your flight, and you're going to live in one of these Nissan huts that are curved like that with these corrugated iron on the top. And in the end of it, there's a coke stove that gives out a terrific heat, and the floor's made of lino, and there's these iron beds down the side and all the way around it, and you get and then you have 8 weeks of running around and being bawled at and shouted at and drilled, and all sorts of awful things happen to you. You get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and you polish your brasses and your things. But the first night was amazing because we're all lying in bed trying to get to sleep, and all of a sudden, this kid sat up in bed and he shouted, "Ma'am, Ma'am, can I have my breakfast in bed tomorrow?" And he woke everybody up. And just for a moment, everybody woke up and then went straight back to sleep again. It was just so funny. It really was. And anyway, then you sort of, you go to the kit store and they chuck uniform at you, look at you, and they chuck uniform at you, and what size boots do you take, you see, and they give you these boots. And another thing that happens is that there was a gas unit. You have to go in this gas unit and they gas you. And it was dreadful. My nose ran for about 2 days after this. And they put you in this, and I don't suppose you're in for longer than about 3 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. And it's awful. You come out gasping, and you come out just about dying on the grass, everybody outside, and gradually recover from this. And they bully you by coming in inspection and throwing all your kit round and saying it's filthy and it isn't, and chucking your bed around and generally bossing you around. But you become very, very disciplined in those 8 weeks. Anyway, so I got to live in St Anne's and started on this medics course. And it was very, very interesting. It was a 10-week course, and you learnt all about first aid. You learnt how to give injection, how to do stitching. We learned 4 operating theatre trays. You had to know all the instruments to pass to the surgeon. You had to learn how to make hospital beds, how to pour medicines. That's just a few of the things that I can think of. But it was very, very interesting. And I absolutely loved it because Blackpool was 2 or 3 miles away, and found a girlfriend in a couple of us picked a couple of lasses up. And whilst I was there, they came round and asked if anybody would like to be a parachute medic. And I thought, that would be rather good, so I volunteered for that. But I went to Blackpool Tower and I realised I got terrible vertigo. I was absolutely scared. I was in my RAF uniform and I was clinging on at the top of Blackpool Tower. I was absolutely scared stiff. So we were swatting for the final exam for this medic's course, and you couldn't be a medic without passing it. Each week you had to pass a little exam, and then there was a big exam at the end. After I passed out from there, instead of being an AC2 when I went in, I suddenly became an AC1 because I'd passed this. And I was ready for posting then. And then you go home on leave and then you find out that you're posted to the Middle East. And at that particular time, there was a song called, I don't know the title of it, but the lyrics were, "See the pyramids along the Nile. See the pyramids along the Nile."
Yeah.
I don't know how it goes, no, who sings it, but that was the hit, right? No, I always remember that. So the next thing is we posted to RAF Lynham, which is the where the plane would take you to the Middle East.
Yes.
And there I am, a few days. I've got my tropical uniform, and I'm wearing my tropical uniform, and I'm playing a game of snooker with 3 more medics in this recreation room, and my jacket with a big £5 white.
The old £5 note.
Yeah, was in my breast pocket, and people had given me money. And I thought, I'll put it all in one of these. I've never had one of these before. I'll take it with me. And I got, from uncles and grandpas and things, I got this £5. Anyway, we played the game and we had a lovely afternoon. And I put my jacket back on and my £5 wasn't there. So, hell, what do I do? So anyway, I decided to go down to the RAF police. There was just a sergeant in the police station down there. And I said to him, I've had the £5 note pinched out of my pocket. I said, there's 4 of us in the room. He said, right. He said, I want you to send the other 3 down, lad. He said, I want you to go back and in the toilet block behind the recreation, stand on the seat and look behind the toilet system, and I think you'll find your £5 note there. So I went back. And sure enough, there was my £5 note. Just behind the system. So anyway, these 3 lads had gone down there, but only 2 came back. In the meantime, I'd been down and told him that I'd found it, and I want to interview these other 3. So they went down, and only 2 came back. And the next day we flew out, and I wanted to clout this kid that had done it because we'd been through all together, and I thought we were friends. Anyway, he pinched me with £5 and we never saw him. And we flew to Malta then, and we were 48 hours in Malta because the planes then couldn't go all the way. They had to do a hop. The next thing there was we flew off to RAF El Hamra in the Canal Zone in Egypt. They would post us on from there. So we were there 3 weeks, and we were in tents in the desert. And they drilled us in the heat, and we had no thing like anything to put on our skin, and it was really, really hot in June, and we all got a lot of sunburn. But then in the after that was the morning. In the afternoon, we marched off to this what I thought was called a bitter lake, but I don't know what it was. But we swam in this lake. But if you looked under the water, unfortunately, what you saw in this lake was rather disgusting. Without, I won't tell you what was in it, but it was pretty awful.
Yeah.
But it was so cooling and lovely. And the other thing that was lovely about RAF Alhambra was that there was what was called Lady Lampson's Club. That was its title. And there was two very genteel, tall, English, beautifully dressed women of probably 50-odd. And they ran this club, and they had pitchers of water cooling, and they did lemonade, beautiful lemonade, and it was just heaven to go to this Lady Lampton's Club. Anyway, next thing happened, I'm on a flight to Aden in Yemen. I was posted to the RAF hospital at Steamer Point. It was a big hospital, and it was run by the RAF. And the staff of the RAF were RAF personnel plus the female nurses were officers of the Queen Alexandra's Royal Nursing Corps. So they were the only women in the services in Aden. It wasn't a female posting at all. And I was put on surgical ward, and I can remember the second day there, we were put in charge of SAC Bateman. SAC Bateman was to teach us the job, and then he was due to go home fairly soon. He needed a circumcision before he went home. He got a tight foreskin. And so they did the operation, and we had to look after him after this operation. And I remember how in the operating theatre they'd put this gauze round his penis and then bandaged on top of this gauze. And the gauze was called Tulle Gras, Tulle, one word, Gras, which we thought was very funny. Anyway, we thought the whole thing was very funny, actually. And, of course, after the operation, it was a bit bloody, and it was sticking to the bandages. And our job, me and another kid, was to take the bandage off and reapply a bandage, which was hilarious. But we pretended that we couldn't do it. And so we said to the officer, and she was a flight lieutenant, lovely, lovely girl, we can't do it. Can you do it, please? You see, because we thought it was really funny, because we'd already nicknamed him, not SAC Bateman, but we called him Master Bateman, you see. And it was just hilarious, because we were taking, he wasn't allowed to have an erection. It was, it wouldn't be very good for him to have it. But so the sister was there. We were falling about with laughter as she changed this dressing 2 or 3 times for him. And we'd take him all the mucky books that we could find with pin-up women in and things, and it was just so wonderful. Anyway, I was on surgical ward when I got there, and the thing was that you helped the sister and you did all sorts of jobs in the thing, like dishing out medicine, dishing out the food, being a sort of nurse, really. Anyway, after about a fortnight there, I suddenly developed this really bad eczema on my fingers. And they put ointment on my fingers and then bandaged each finger with this. So I was going around like this, couldn't do any work. And they sent a specialist to see me, and the guy, I don't know what rank he was. Thinking back, I think he sort of, certainly more than group captain, which was quite a high rank for us. But anyway, this bloke came to see me, and he looked at me and he said, "You want to go home, don't you, lad?" I said, "No, sir, I don't. I'm having a good time. I'm quite enjoying it, thank you." Oh, he said, "Well, if you want to," he said, "I can get you home with this if you want to." So I said, "No." So he said, "Right, what we'll do then is we'll do a patch test." So on my arm here, we had all sorts of things that it could be causing this, and one of them was orange juice on this pad in here. And it turned out, what I did was, when I came off duty, I went straight to the naffy and I drank 3 pints of ice cold squash.
Because it was so hot.
Yeah, so hot, amazingly hot. And so anyway, that turned out to be the cause of it. And so I didn't drink squash, and so I was all right again from that. One evening, one of the guys in the accommodation suggested that we use his Ouija board. I'd never heard of an Ouija board before. Ouija board before then.
Right.
So he got this out, and 4 of us sat round the table. We've all got our fingers on the glass. Yeah. And I said to it, "Would you please spell out the name of my sister?" And the glass moved. And it started. And there was a guy writing down. So we didn't know what it was spelling out until we'd taken our blindfolds off. And it had written down ELISABET, Elizabeth. Now, my sister's name is Elizabeth, but my sister's name is spelt with a Z. So I said, "No, it's amazing, this." I said, "It's spelt out my sister's name, but it's spelt it out with a Z, with an S instead of a Z."
Right.
30 years later, I found my sister was in a home by then, and I found my sister's birth certificate. And on the birth certificate, it was spelled ELISABETH. Now that, honestly, made me think that there's some other force, or somebody's watching us, or something's happening, because that was just incredible to me.
How did that make you feel when you read that?
It sent shivers down my spine, honestly.
And you went, and you can remember the day you did that was spelled out on the Ouija board.
Yeah,
as soon as you read it.
Absolutely.
Wow.
I got into trouble at the hospital, as in my life there's been these little misdemeanors, and this particular one was after we'd given out the evening meal. At the lunch meal one day, there was a quantity of jelly and custard that was left over. We tried very hard. The patients, there was just far too much. So, Sister and I were sitting on the draining board either side of the sink in the kitchen, and we both of us got some jelly and custard. We were sitting there, and the phone rang. The sister went to answer it. A couple of minutes later, the matron walked in, group captain, RAF matron, got in. "What the earth are you doing, Airman?" You see. So, sister wasn't there. And what had happened, I expect, is that the warning system had warned her that the matron was on the way when she got the phone, but she couldn't do anything to warn me. Anyway,
so
I was put on charge.
It's a serious offence, of eating jelly and custard.
Yeah, you must never eat the patient's food.
Right.
And we never did, but obviously it was a waste, and it was a lovely day and so forth. Anyway, I was put on a charge, and on a charge, you, in your best uniform, you are marched into the officer's room, bang, 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 and then you salute, and then you stand rigidly at ease, and the charge is read out to the attending officer by the sergeant that wheels you in, you see. And I was admonished. I didn't have to do any punishment, but I was just severely told off and warned that it must never happen again. And then, about 3 weeks later, I was posted to the flying station, which was about 5 or 6 miles away. And whether it was anything to do with that incident, I don't really know. I suspect it could have been. Anyway, I found myself, because I was the new kid, I was put on native treatments. And native treatments was very difficult because they didn't understand English, we didn't understand Arabic. Anyway, so you had to treat natives mainly for cuts and bruises to the feet because they didn't wear anything on the feet, and they obviously came across stones and things like that. Also, you had to treat them for bellyache and other things. And so you got about 3 treatments for bellyache. You got penicillin powder for cuts and bruises.
Yeah.
And you got stuff for being bunged up and all that sort of thing. So you did your best, and you had another guy with you, but gradually he got quite good at dealing with the natives. The officers the doctors wouldn't touch them unless they were dying.
What kind of, apart from the bellyache and the penicillin powder and the paracetamol or whatever it would have been, would you do any more treatment on natives, or was that?
Only very basic treatment on natives, because really, if it was anything serious, they would have to go into town and go to a native hospital where they could speak properly and be understood properly. We just...
But it was only the natives that were working on the base or around or working for you.
Or they did bring their families in.
Right,
but mainly
their family.
Mainly the base was sealed.
Yeah.
But if they were a valuable worker, they would they would be camped outside the area that was pretty tightly sealed off, because it had got, say, a dozen expensive fighter planes. It was a fighter station.
And you had a pretty awful experience with a plane crash.
Yeah, it was dreadful. We were told that if the sick quarters bell ever went, you had to run to the sick quarters. There was something dreadful happening. And the bell went, and everybody, all the medics, rushed there. And we were told that a pilot had crashed and blown up his plane and himself to bits, and we got to go out and pick up the bits of the body. And so we went out and we went in a line. There was, and we each had a bowl. And we picked up some awful, awful things. And it was pretty dreadful. And I was sick. One or two of the others were sick. It was a horrific sight. I was in the cricket team. That was good fun, except that if a high-ranking officer wanted to play cricket, he got in the team, even though he couldn't play cricket very well, if he wanted to. And that was very annoying, but especially when you're playing another station. And the other thing about cricket, which I found rather amazing, when I was at school, I opened the bowling at cricket for the school team, and the other guy that opened the bowling with me was a guy called Anderson. And we played the Army at cricket, and I opened the bowling for the RAF Comaxa station, and he opened the bowling for the Army kid Anderson that I was at school with. I think that was an amazing coincidence.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, you let him up again. He was the bowler, I was the leading bowler. You know. Incredible. Another thing that happened, we had an open-air cinema on the station, and I was in the queue one night waiting to get in. And I got a backpack on, and the backpack had a thing on it that said Roger Wheen on that backpack. But it was folded, and it was folded so that it spelt R-O-G instead of Roger. And this guy behind me said, "That's an unusual name, Rog." Well, what happened then was that I was called by everybody Rog. And it's something that stuck with me all my life.
Yes.
It's stuck with me all the way through Scouts. I've always been known as Rog. I must also tell you something that happened to me as I became a leader of Scouts. We're leaving the Scouts for later, but this one's quite interesting. Whilst I was there, because people were leaving, they wanted me to be the Scout leader after a very short time. I'd never been a Scout leader, so I didn't know anything about it. But yes, the Scout troop would close unless I ran it. So I said it would, and the guy that was telling me this said, "Well, the other thing that you must do, if you're the Scout leader, it's traditional that you also must be on the youth committee, on the youth club committee, because we don't want the youth club taking over the Scout Hut, because they met in it as well. It's important that we have the upper hand in negotiations about the Scout Hut." So I got quite interested in the youth club there as well, and it was quite good because there was one or two girls in it, about 14 or 15, but it was a bit of fun, and it was different. And then the Padre said to a couple of us, "I'd like you to go on a moral leadership course." Well, we didn't think we were very moral at all, but the point was that it was a fortnight's trip to the Holy Land, to Jerusalem. And we thought that would be absolutely amazing, see a bit more of the world and visit the Holy Land. So we said, yeah, we'd like to go on that. So we, the day that we went, we got in this small plane, and I think it was about 12 seats, twin engines, not jet, but just twin prop engines. We took off from the runway, and as we took off, the engine on our side fluttered and stopped. And so it was taking off on one engine. He was near the end. He carried on. Our wing went down towards the water, and he managed to fly it, and he took it round, and he landed on the end of the runway, and we all got out of the plane and pushed it back to where it started from. And I thought we were very lucky that day not to die.
Yeah.
And a week later, we did the trip and went to, we landed in Amman. We changed into civvies. We never used our RAF uniform for a fortnight. And we were taken all over the Holy Land. We went to Bethlehem, Jerusalem, to all the holy sites, the Wailing Wall. We swam in the Dead Sea where you can't sink, and we had an absolutely great time. Ron and I, still being a bit rebellious, when it came to bedtime, we would go up on the roof of this church and lie there and watch people walking around on the ground. There weren't many cars in Jerusalem in 1954, and it was heaven, just lying up there on the roof of this church, just watching the Jerusalem world go by. It was terrific.
That sounds